So here we are on the project, and this is what I was originally given when I first received this project. Now, bear in mind, the person who created this actual project here is about 14 years old. His name's Sebastian. He's really good at producing, to be honest. At 14, I wish I kind of had the skills this guy has, but anyway, so I got the project. I was looking into it. I first had to listen to it. What I will do actually is I'll play the original project to you, so you can kind of get an idea of what it sounded like, and then I'll show you the fixed kind of mix that I had for that one as well. So let me play the original track to you first. So this was this one here, I believe. All right, so you can kind of get a vibe for it. It's like a kind of, I guess, dance slash, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. So it's that kind of vibe. You can tell with the mix, it's everything is sort of low end is kind of overpowering the mix a little bit. There's just a little bit too much going on with the low end, sort of in general with that whole thing. So it kind of clouds the frequency. So what I did, I went in there inside of Logic and then messed around a little bit with the low end, just removed a whole bunch of stuff out that didn't really need to be there. And I want to show you guys exactly what I did to help this sort of mix shine. And then I'm going to show you exactly what I did to rearrange this track and get it to sound something completely better. I believe it sounds better anyway, or different, I should say, not better. But anyway, let's go in and have a look and see what was done here. So first off, to make a note, this track here, I added some external compressor, an external compressor that I have here. It's like an SSL style of compressor, so that's hardware unit compressor. But that's really the only hardware that I have on this track other than that. But I'll play this track to you, I'll show you what it sounds like, and let's go. All right, so hopefully you kind of get a vibe of what that sounds like. It's kind of a variation of that throughout the track. Kind of reminds me of a video game, to be honest, with this track. But let me show you what I converted that into, and I'll just play that to you right now, so you can kind of get a vibe of what's possible with certain arrangements, and then just messing around with arrangements, certain different selections of instruments and stuff like that. So let's play. So hopefully that gave you a pretty good concept of what you can convert something from to something else, just by arrangement and the selection of sounds that you're using, and also a bit of EQ, compression, and some effects. So I want to show you exactly how I got from this to the next thing. What I'll do, I'll close out of this project and show you inside of Logic, so that the new project that I've got here, and show you exactly what that is. So let's go to that version. I don't want to save this, so we'll just go to close and don't save. It's going to open up, and there's probably going to be a bunch of plugins that open that I don't actually have licenses to because I haven't updated those licenses yet. No, I was wrong. Okay, so let's go into the mix here. I'll show you from the get-go where we played from before. Okay, so I'm sure I'll play this whole track at some point in time for another video, maybe. But I just want to show you the kind of breakdown of how I went from that first track to what's currently on the screen right now. Nothing's color coded yet, but I just want to show you kind of the breakdown of how it all worked and how I kind of the mentality behind sort of selection of sounds and just why I arranged it a certain way that I did. So let's get into it. First of all, the plugins. So you can see here, there's a lot of stuff that's happening along the mix here, a lot of EQ, a lot of effects, and there's a lot of stuff on the main bus here. So you can see here on the main mix bus, this is kind of where I'm doing my mastering slash mixing. But I like to do most of my mastering and mixing inside of the main project. Like you can see here, I like to kind of do it all as one thing. Yeah, obviously, I won't do it in one sort of setting. I'll come back and listen to the track and then think, what can I do to make this sound better? But let's go through some of the breakdown of the track first, and I'll go through the effects in just a moment. So the track here started off with the arrangement. So as you can see on that previous window, if I had that open available to you, there was just a whole bunch of stuff. It was kind of all congested together. And I felt that what was happening with the mix is, yes, there was some sort of a build up for the track, but at the same time, the track wasn't really sort of building tension, then releasing, building tension, and then releasing. Now that's the kind of thing that you want to do with, especially this kind of music. It's because it's more of a tension building sort of style of music. It's not so much like hip hop where you just sort of rhythm all the way through. I feel that dance music, this at least this style of dance music, is really about building tension, releasing, building tension, releasing. And that's kind of just the way that I feel like this genre has been for a long time. Like this super high energy stuff. So let's get into what I did here. I'll show you the first kind of stuff that I messed around with, and I converted some of the instruments from the stock instruments to VSTs, that third party stuff. So first one was using Tone 2 Electra 2. That's kind of using this sound here. You can see on that one there. I'll just play it to you. Now you'll notice to the left here, there's a bit of automation happening as well. So if I just go to the automation screen, kind of looks freaky. There's a lot of automation happening in this track, but this also drives a lot of the, I guess, that build and release kind of thing with the track. And the guy who originally built this first song, it wasn't this layout that I've got, but he built the track with some automation in it, which was key to making it feel like it had rhythm inside of the track. But the thing was, there were certain things happening with the master bus where he was using, I don't have it on here now, but he was using a gain plugin to kind of create that rhythm. So he had automation going up and down on the whole master bus. So I understand the concept to that, but it's probably not the best way of attacking I guess, that rhythm section that you want with the track. So you can see here, this sort of builds up. It kind of goes up here and then goes quiet and just stays quiet for a lot of the track until this part here, where it's kind of isolated more on its own. There's not a whole lot happening here, but the automation is making it kind of build tension, then release, build tension, release, and that's repeating over those three sections there. So these parts here. So it's kind of key to have that kind of thing. So if you listen to this just this part here. See how the automation dips it right down at the start, but then it builds up quite quickly. That's on purpose, though, because you're trying to build that tension inside of the track. So if I just get out of that automation screen and highlight the other things that are happening right now, and this crackle has a lot to do with the way this sounds as well. And I just want to make a note about this because crackle or vinyl, I guess that sound of vinyl, it really does alter the way that your silent parts in the track kind of feel like they're actually still doing something, but they're silent. So it kind of creates that white noise ish kind of feel to it so that it makes it feel like it's alive. So I'll just play this part to you now. Now you can hear the difference in the changes of instruments. There's not a whole lot of instrumentation in this part. That's because I was intending to make it like a break. So you can see here, there's a section here where it starts to build up. There's parts here where it's just the drum kit come in, and then you've got the actual kit here. So the hi-hats are separate to the actual drum kit here, and it's just basically using the stock plugin inside of Logic. But what I've done with these instruments here, yeah, so the hi-hat, what I've done here is I've made it follow tempo. So it allows the sampler to follow the tempo of the track rather than just using a sample length tempo, which also adds an effect to the way the ADSR, so the way that the kick or the hi-hat or whatever responds to the timing of the track. So that also helps a lot with clearing out some certain space in the track, making it sound more in line with the tempo of the track as well. But that's just little things here. So if you just click this little button here, it allows it to follow tempo, and it's at one speed of the track. So obviously every time there's a MIDI, it'll allow that to hit in time with the tempo of the track. That's the little thing there you can do as well. So the other part of this track I just wanted to show you as well is with the where is it? With this boom effects here. So this is like just a boom effect, but that's creating that sort of that bang, that hit, and then that tension sort of releases from there, and it kind of just builds up with the track. So another thing you also want to look for is trying to, I guess, create variation inside of the track. But another thing that you want to also look at is when you're building rhythm with that variation. So first off, with the rhythm, I want to show you how I achieve that rhythm. So this is a plugin which is called LFO Tool. It's quite a good tool. It's by Exfer, and it's something that's been around for a while. I know a lot of people use this if they're creating other, dance style music or whatever. But this is an LFO tool. So obviously it allows you to, I should get another one on the track and show you exactly what it does. OTT, I'll talk about that in a second as well. But this is what it would normally look like when you first load it up. It has pretty much the LFO curve there, and I'll solo this so you can see and hear what it's doing. So that's building that rhythm in the track, and especially with this type of music where you've got a kick that's four on the floor, sort of kick, snare, or whatever it is. Usually your kick's going to fall in line with this LFO. So if you put an LFO on majority of the stuff that you want rhythm, obviously you can vary this. You can turn it on and off depending on what you wanted on the track. But it allows you to have rhythm in the track without having to sidechain your kick to a bass or whatever. You can achieve this kind of thing with sidechaining, but I didn't do any sidechaining at all in this track. And that's because I was using this LFO tool. So it's quite a handy tool to have. Just look at that if you have not looked at that tool before. But that is exactly what I did here. But obviously a different preset, sort of just messing with the different timings of this track, and it's on a 1/4 rate. So yeah, that's pretty much how that got that way. And you can kind of see and so that's without the LFO. So you can see how boring that becomes without that kind of effect on it. That's a simple effect there. OTT is another same sort of brand, same plugin company. This is a multi-band compressor, but it is a really handy one because you literally slap it onto majority of your sounds. I've only got it on, I think, 2 sounds in this track, but you throw it onto 2 different sounds and it really does flatten out that sound, and it creates kind of this really ultra compressed sort of sound, but it really brings out different features out of the sound that you didn't hear before. And it also allows you to tame those, the peaks, or I guess the dynamics of that particular sound. So you can use this mix style, which is what I've done here is I've put it down to 50% on the mix, and I've taken out some of the low end, some of the mids, and left a little bit of the highs that it originally started with, but I took out a tiny bit of that as well. But this allows upward and downward compression at the same time for 3 bands. So your lows, your mids, your highs. So that's another thing I put on there, but I can show you exactly what those two without it sounds like. Very boring, not much happening there. Throw these on and see where that goes. So that's pretty much this particular sound. You can see here I've used side only EQ for removing the sides. So that's pretty much anything that's below that 236 hertz. I've removed all of that, well, for the most part anyway, for minus 24 dB. And that's allowing those sides to kind of clear out so that the low end really can sit in the track right and it doesn't interfere with other parts of the sides of the track. So let me play this part here as well. I want to show you what this sounds like in conjunction with this part here. So what that is, it's just a high synth. It's really just I put the octave up. I'm using the stock plugin inside of Logic, so this is quite a nice sound here. But I've turned off some of the actual parts on this synth, so I didn't need them all. I didn't want to have all that sound going on. It's literally go from browser, you go to advanced, and then it's there. Actually, I'll show you the plugin. That's the setting that I've got. I've actually put a 5 star on it because I want to keep that there. But that's the advanced function here, so it allows you to do a little bit more manipulation behind the scenes, and obviously control the volume on pretty much every plugin you put in on your mix. Make sure you control the volume from the plugin itself. Don't go into the actual mixer here and start turning stuff down until you really have set the volume of the plugin up right. Because what I find is if you're not controlling the volume of the plugin, certain things don't work, like compressors and things like that. They don't work cleanly, or the gain staging's all messed up, and it kind of messes with the things that you're trying to achieve inside of the mix for your plugins. So that's that. Let's just go to, I'll just unhighlight all of them and just play it all out from here. See what that sounds like. So you can hear in this section here, I've got a lot of the drum kit pretty much playing out through this part to build up that whole thing there. The rhythm section starts before the drum kit, and that's because I wanted to just show, or for the listener to hear something with the drum kit, but not the full kick. So that's what I did here. But you can kind of hear how the bass kind of, I guess it fills in that spot. And this is the bass instrument now that I'm using. So as I go along, everything is sort of just has its own place. There's a reason so it can build up tension inside the track. And the bass that I'm using is a Serum plugin. So Serum is probably by far one of the most flexible, I guess, VSTs that you could use as a synth for this type of music. There are other ones out there, obviously. It's not the be all and end all of music production, but This one is definitely a good plugin to have if you want to have more flexibility with the LFOs and just using oscillators and stuff like that. So what I did here, it kind of looks a bit scary. If you haven't seen this plugin before, maybe you should spend some time looking into it. But otherwise, what I've got here is a subsection. I'm using a sine wave here, and it's basically just, it gives you a couple of different shapes there. So you can got, different subs that you want to put there. I've got that down an octave, and the volume is set to even, so it's not louder than anything else in the mix there. Then I've got another section here which is playing out this different waveform and two different sort of waveforms. I believe that's a saw wave and this one's like a square wave. But they're just a little bit altered to each other, and I'm not using any filtering on this section here. So that filter is off, and they're kind of just working around their own kind of purpose. I'm not going to go into in-depth tutorial of this because I don't want to explain all of that right now, but that's how I'm creating the bass. And you can hear it here. Now you can see down here, the bass is quite low in volume, and that's because there is so much low end stuff happening, and especially the kick in this track. I wanted the kick to kind of have its own space, and I'll show you that in just a minute. But there is a lot of low end stuff happening here, so I decided to go down one octave to fill out that space, and I'll show you what that looks like on a meter if I have one available. All right. Now, as you can see, that kind of hits around about minus 18 as a peak, minus 24. We'll have a look and see what it actually does. Yeah, minus 15-ish, 13, depends on what it's doing. But it kind of gives you an idea of kind of what's happening with the sounds there. I'm not using too much because, with the low end, it's really specific about where you place your low end. Low end frequencies, they really do take up a lot of the mix. And if you don't have the right amount or too much or too little, it's just something that ruins the mix in general. So this type of music, you want a lot of that high end sort of stuff. You want, I guess, a lot of the, white noise and sort of stuff like that to really stick out. But the low end has to be there and it has to be powerful. But there's certain ways to achieve that, and I'll show you how to do that as well. But let me just play that section here. I'll show you what that sounds like. So you can kind of hear at that point where the build-up happened with this boom effects here. That's where some of the low end started to come in because other instruments are actually playing in this mix. So if you get this and your kick and stuff all going at once, there's actually a lot of low end in that kick. And let me show you what the kick looks like. This EQ is crazy. It's actually got a boost here, which is at 88 hertz. And that's 6 dB of boost, but I'm actually taking a little bit of low end here so some of the other instruments can breathe in that space. But then I've removed out, well, there's some of the top end removed here originally, but I've kind of used that to filter out a little bit. I've taken up some from the original source that it was on there. And that actually is, this filter actually expands. So you can see that's automated as well. So the EQ is actually automating through that entire process, and I'll show you what that looks like when it's actually doing that. This part here, it automates a whole section up to this point, then it automates a little bit more, and then it goes down here and it lowers back down. And this is kind of where the actual build sort of ends. For that part of the instruments, at least anyway. And if I just solo or unsolo it, see, what I did there is I kind of broke up the monotony of the track by allowing a silent part. Now, kind of just gets the listeners like, oh, wow, what happened then? Let's go find out kind of thing. And they want to keep listening. So that's kind of where you go with that. So I'll just let that build up again. And you can kind of hear in this section here, this is where these filters and the I guess modulation of stuff. So automation is king when it comes to this kind of music, so you can't really mess with that sort of stuff. But you can see the automation, how it's affecting. And especially on this instrument down here, this is a lot of automation with the high cut frequency there. And I'll just bring that up so you can see it. So it's literally opening up the EQ so that that sound on its own can breathe, and it really does shine inside the mix, and you can kind of see and listen to it as well. Now, with this track, as I was saying to you before, it is totally about the build release type scenario, and this is kind of what I'm doing with these synths as well. So I'll play this part to you here. So all I've done here literally is automation. So I've got automation that's making this a little bit quiet. And then up here, it's doing that crazy thing with automation. It dips at the start and then builds up. It gives the track the kind of feeling of, motion and that vibe that it gives it. So the way I'm achieving that as well is, again, this LFO tool. It really does change the way it sounds. And if I disable this, you can kind of really hear how much of a letdown that has. So that part here, this is just a saw kind of sound-ish wave. It's actually that sound there, but I've got three sort of synths happening at once. So this one, this one, this one, and this one is turned off. So it allows you to have four separate wavetables, or I guess four synths going at once. And they're all doing their own separate thing. But this modulation wheel is actually being altered by another automation thing in here. I don't want to go through it all, but for now, at least anyway, just know that it's been modulated by that as well. So OTT, again, is the beast when it comes to using sort of that real compressed sort of sound. It just really pushes it up in the mix, creates that kind of loudness, that thick, full, I guess, sound synth kind of thing that you really want. And then how I achieve that as well is, I'll just go back to the unautomated page. I've got this section here. With the MIDI as well, it's got a lot to do with where you place your MIDI. So if you're putting the MIDI so it's at a lot higher octave, or just pushing the octaves higher up in the mix, it creates, I guess, more energy to the track as well. That's kind of I guess, an arrangement thing that you can do, but just different things like that. So just remember that there's different things you can do with your arrangement if you have different automation, different octaves with the sounds that you've got. There's all kinds of stuff. Mess around with it. Just really think about what you want inside of the mix. And think of it from a perspective of the person who would be listening to your stuff, not yourself, but somebody else who'd be listening to it and vibing to it. And then try and put yourselves in their shoes if you can. If that's who you are and you've been used to being at nightclubs or whatever, maybe that would be beneficial to you to understand kind of what creates that energy inside of the track. But this is definitely a way that you can build sort of thing, that sort of sound that you want for the tracks that you're trying to build. This other part here as well, I'll just play that to you. Same thing here with the filter again. That's just a building filter that's expanding, and it's the same kind of thing that you just build energy with that filter. This track's not actually doing anything much. It's really just a filter after some reverb. And that's another thing I like to do a lot is I EQ after my reverbs. It depends on what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, but generally if I want to get a clean sound, I'll EQ directly after the reverb so that it clears out everything that reverb added that I didn't want inside of the mix. So that's just those two there. What else is there on this track that I can show you as a overview? This actually has some reverb on it as well. It's only 19% reverb, which is not a whole lot. The other thing I've put on here is Valley People, a compressor, which really slams the drums there. Doesn't do a whole lot. Just adds that snap to the drums that I wanted to really stick out. This EQ, I showed you that already. That's really just pushing that that frequency out there. That's not even a required plugin. I think I had that at some point in time. The other thing here is Neutron, which is Neutron 3. I'm going to do more of a tutorial on, Neutron 2. More of a tutorial on number 3 because I actually use 3 a lot as well, but I used 2 on this particular one. So it's a transient shaper. If you're familiar with transient shapers, what they do is they remove or add the transients to or sustain to the sound. So that it just allows it to really stick out. So I'll turn that off. So it's not doing heaps. It's just allowing this part here to add some sustain to that that frequency at the top. So just allows it to stick out a little bit more. That's all. So I put some sustain so I could bring out some of the room of that sound. It really did sort of create more of a rhythm in the track, I should say, at this point, especially where it was with the EQ, it kind of cut off some of the high end frequency. So that's kind of just the little things like that, little tips that you can use for mixing. I just really want to explain to you the, I guess, the process, the not so much in depth sort of process. I could take you through all of that. But again, the main instruments that I'm using, I've got this Electrax to another Electrax. What's this one? Electrax again. Alchemy, which is a standard plugin inside of Logic. Again, I showed you that already. Serum I'm using for the low end and the, I guess, the synth bass that you've got there. Alchemy again, which is just another fantastic sort of sounding synth. You can't really go wrong with it, to be honest. I'd like to have it in most DAWs if I could. Serum again. So that's Serum there. That's also for this sound, which is this. And then on this part here. So all I've pretty much done here is with this set of chords here, I've gone in and I've literally just pretty much moved some up by an octave. I believe I took the bottom section here and I just put it up. Yeah, that's what I did. So I put it up an octave. So I guess I didn't really transpose it, but I don't know what you want to call that. That's kind of the vibe that I did with that anyway, so I could just get a different sound to it. So I did that with these two sections here just to create a bit of a difference in it. So that just really just builds up more tension in the track, and it just gives that more of a vibe to the sound as well. Next sound is just a Drum Machine Designer. Next one again is Drum Machine Designer. I don't think I actually used that at all, so I don't know why that's there. No, I'm not using that. Next thing here, what else? We got Alchemy again. Let's see. Next sound, Alchemy again. Sculptor, which is another stock plugin inside of Logic. I stuck with that sound because I kind of felt like it created its own kind of vibe. And it really complemented the rest of the track as well. So that's what that was doing there. Alchemy again. So we're really loving this Alchemy. And then what have we got? Just the rest of it's all sampled stuff. So, and then the Crackle vinyl, and then my tag at the bottom. These things up here, which is originally the vocal, I got rid of that. I muted it out from this particular track because what I wanted or what I needed to do was create a track without vocals on it. So I then filled in the vocal places with synth sounds, and I've obviously got a different mix of the vocal tracks on a different project. But that's just there so I can be reminded to put it back in. And I actually put that in a summing bus, which I'll just now name. Vocal. So that's what's happening there. That is pretty much the dealio. So hopefully this is of some benefit to you guys. If you're kind of getting an idea of electronic music and you really want to start building it, I'd be keen to see or hear about what you guys are doing on your stuff. Otherwise, comment down below as well on what you're doing on your tracks, and hopefully this is of some benefit to you to kind of learn. But I'm going to do more of an in-depth tutorial. I just wanted to go high level overview of the kind of things that I did, show you the layout of the track and how it originally sounded, and just show you how you can convert certain things into new sounds and go from there. So love you guys, and as always, peace out.